Imagine you are the CFO of a mid-sized logistics firm, just sitting down with your morning coffee to approve the weekly payroll. You open your laptop, expecting a spreadsheet, but instead, you are greeted by a singular, pulsating red skull and a countdown timer set to 48 hours. You chuckle, thinking the IT guy is playing a prank, until your phone starts buzzing with texts from the warehouse floor saying the inventory robots have stopped moving. But here is what happened next. You didn't just lose a day of work. Your company just became a statistic in a war that is currently siphoning more wealth than the GDP of most industrialized nations combined. Today we are going to dissect how we went from teenage pranksters defacing websites to a geopolitical crisis where digital extortion is arguably the world's fastest growing economy. Let's start with the immediate sticker shock, because inflation isn't just hitting your grocery bill. It is hitting the black market too. Gone are the days when hackers asked for a few $100 in Bitcoin to unlock your family photos. In 2023, the average ransom payment was around $400,000, which is already enough to ruin a decent fiscal quarter. But hold on to your wallets, because in 2024, that average payment surged by an astonishing 500%. We are talking about an average climbing to $2 million per payment, which is a growth curve that would make a tech bro weep with envy. This figure is heavily skewed by the increasing frequency of massive corporate hits, but the trend is undeniable. Meanwhile, the global average cost of a data breach, just the cleanup, not even the ransom, crossed $4.88 million in 2024. It turns out that cleaning up a digital crime scene is significantly more expensive than cleaning up a physical one. Why rob a bank with a gun when you can rob the bank's server from a beach chair? The economics of crime have shifted, and the entry price for victimhood has never been higher. It is a seller's market for chaos right now. If you think you are safe because you aren't a Fortune 500 company, I have some bad news. But if you are of a big fish, I have worse news. Attackers have stopped casting wide nets and started using harpoons, signaling a definitive shift in strategy. In 2024, a staggering 63% of all ransom demands were for $1 million or more. They aren't looking for pocket change anymore. They are looking for quarterly revenue. This is what we call big game hunting in the industry, and the hunters are eating well. The days of automated scripts hitting random IP addresses are fading in favor of bespoke, artisanal extortion events. Why waste time on 1,000 small targets when one CEO's panic is worth 7 figures? This shift explains why that average payment jumped to $2 million. The criminals are essentially gentrifying cybercrime. It is no longer a nuisance. It is a line item on the corporate budget, right next to legal fees and R&D. If you have money, they have a way to take it. We are watching the industrialization of theft in real time. Now let's step away from the corporate boardrooms and look at the carnage on Main Street, because the trickle-down economics of cybercrime are brutal. While the headlines focus on the millions, the volume of smaller-scale fraud is bleeding the economy dry. In 2024 alone, U.S. consumers lost $12.5 billion to scams, a number that represents grandmothers, savings, and college funds vanishing into the ether. But it is not just grandma getting phishing emails. Businesses are getting hammered by something called business email compromise. This is where high-dollar invoice fraud comes into play, costing businesses over $2 billion annually. It is the digital equivalent of a guy in a high-vis vest walking out of a construction site with a ladder. If you look confident enough, nobody questions the invoice. Every minute, minor crimes add up to a death by 1,000 cuts for the economy. We are looking at a transfer of wealth from the honest to the dishonest on a scale that is hard to comprehend. And the worst part? Most of this money is unrecoverable, disappearing into a labyrinth of crypto mixers. Your spam folder is basically a minefield now. If you think the current numbers are depressing, let me introduce you to the near future, which looks less like a projection and more like a disaster movie script. Ransomware alone is projected to cause about $57 billion in damages by 2025. To put that in perspective, that is roughly the GDP of a small European nation, just vaporized by encryption software. But that $57 billion is just the tip of the melting iceberg. The CISA, that's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency for the uninitiated, states that global cybercrime costs will cross $10.5 trillion annually by 2025. That is marking a 10% year-over-year increase, compounding like the worst interest rate you have ever seen. We are moving from crime to catastrophe Territory. When you have an industry draining $10.5 trillion from the global economy, it stops being a police matter and starts being a geopolitical existential crisis. We are staring down the barrel of a financial black hole. The clock is ticking, and the ransom note is already being typed up. Basically, the internet is becoming the most expensive neighborhood in history. Let's talk about the outliers, the record-breaking moments that make you wonder if we are living in a simulation. In 2024, we saw a single record-breaking ransom payment of $75 million. Let that sink in. $75 million wired to a digital wallet because a company simply had no other choice. A payment of that magnitude can dramatically pull up the averages, but it also sets a terrifying precedent for what attackers think they can get away with. If one company pays $75 million, every other hacking group suddenly thinks their malware is worth a premium upgrade. This escalating danger is reflected in the boardroom anxiety. The Global Cybersecurity Outlook survey reveals that 72% of respondents reported an increase in cyber risk. The executives are terrified, and frankly, they should be. When you see a peer pay out $75 million, you start wondering if your insurance policy is actually just a piece of paper. It is a gold rush, and the only ones selling shovels are the cybersecurity firms charging you to clean up the mess. The audacity is the point. We have entered the era of the mega breach. We need to recontextualize what we are looking at here. This isn't just crime, it is a rival economy. Estimates suggest cybercrime's footprint ranges from roughly $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion annually on the low end, all the way up to that $10.5 trillion figure we mentioned. If cybercrime were a country, it would have the third largest economy in the world, sitting right behind the US and China. Think about the infrastructure required to move that kind of money. This isn't three guys in a basement, it's a multinational corporation with HR departments and customer support. Yes, ransomware gangs have customer support to help you buy Bitcoin to pay them. This shadow economy is siphoning wealth at a rate that threatens global stability. It is a silent war, where the territory being conquered is your bank account and your intellectual property. We are effectively subsidizing a criminal superpower every time we connect to the internet. And unlike a real country, this one doesn't pay taxes or build roads. It's the GDP of the underworld, and business is booming. So where does this train wreck end? According to the data, it doesn't end. It just gets bigger and faster. Projections indicate the annual average cost of cybercrime will cross $23 trillion in 2027. That number is so large it becomes abstract, like trying to visualize the distance to the sun. Furthermore, some indicators suggest we will hit a new peak of financial destruction in 2029, with specific damages reaching over $9 trillion in that year alone. We are looking at a future where the cost of doing business online might eventually outweigh the benefits for some sectors. Ann Neuberger, the U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor, has flagged this, noting that beyond financial losses, we are risking essential services. When hospitals, power grids, and food supply chains are part of that $23 trillion price tag, money becomes the least of our problems. We are barreling toward a reality where the digital world makes the physical world unlivable. It is a bleak trajectory, folks. The bill is coming due, and we can't afford it. So, to recap, ransom demands are up 500%. We are losing trillions annually, and a shadow economy is rising that rivals the GDP of major superpowers. The silent war isn't silent anymore. It is deafening, and the ammunition is your data. If you want to survive the digital apocalypse without losing your shirt, smash that subscribe button. It's free, unlike your data after a breach.